The first thing that pops in my mind, I would say, is being able to figure out how to effectively distribute work. I would say all engineering leaders start off as ICs, or they should. And going from having full control over your own processes, your own code, your own logic, your own architecture, to widening it to even two people, it's actually pretty hard to do. And then you go 2 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. You have to realize that you're not an IC anymore. And so you as a leader, you have to step back a lot sooner than you think you do.
Welcome to Tech Teams Today. I'm Lucas Mendez. I'm the CEO and founder of Woflow. And today we're joined by Jordan Nemrow, co-founder and CTO at Woflow. Woflow is a machine learning powered task automation system that helps businesses create and maintain complex structured data at scale. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lucas. Happy to be here.
Just a quick heads up, everyone. Jordan will be joining us live as a panelist on April 16th at Convene in downtown San Francisco for an exclusive event all about the future of engineering leadership. If you're an engineering leader in the Bay Area, this is one you won't want to miss. Check out the registration link on the show notes. We'd love to see you there. But Jordan, you've had a fascinating career. You started out as a software engineer. You were working on scaling at TriNet after an acquisition, and then founding Woflow to solve a massive problem in structuring unstructured data. Now, can you start by walking us through your journey a little bit?
I wish the journey started at just being a software engineer, but it started a lot before that. But if we start at that point, the journey towards Woflow is really based on automation, just in general. I was always fascinated with automation. My career prior to being a software engineer was being a business owner. Like I really wanted to start a startup. I had no intention of actually being an engineer. Just wanted to be a CEO. And part of it was just really understanding problems and trying to put the right people on those problems. I never thought that I was the right person to actually complete those problems, but I thought I could lead a team to do it. I eventually realized software engineering for me was actually a lot more fun than the business side. So I went all in on it. I actually didn't go to school for software at all. I went all in, and automation was really the thing that drove me. So I was deep in my software career in the height of RPA, robotic process automation, building Chrome extensions, building different things that helped people essentially copy data from one place, bring it to another. It was a very heuristic version of what agentic workflows are today. So every node was
A different
this
extension.
and that, right? Yeah, exactly. And it was fascinating. Actually, it was good. It helped a lot of people. The things that I was building, both for my company at the time, which was the software startup Teleborder, and then TriNet, which is the one that acquired us, and then to my own projects that I, basically expanded out and realized, okay, I need to push these projects and push this software out to other people and see if anyone bites. And quite a few people bit. My co-founder was actually my first customer. Another good friend of mine who I worked with before was also another big customer of ours. So I had a lot of bites and a single Facebook post that really kickstarted the Woflow experience for me.
That's a great story. I want to hear a little bit more about that. Before we go there, what inspired you to launch Woflow? Were you focusing on a specific problem in the market? I know you were passionate about automation, but were you trying to solve for something specific?
Very specific and broad at the same time. The specific thing is I was trying to solve for copying data on your laptop from one place and pasting it somewhere else in an automated fashion. So this is 2016, 2015, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs where all people are doing is copying data here, pasting it into this form, copying data here, pasting it in this form. So you can start to build these macros. And so I wanted to build a piece of software that you could essentially do it once and then just click replay, right? So it's basically a recipe. I wanted to build a recipe for copy and pasting data on your laptop. And that was the first product of Woflow. It was a Chrome extension that did just that.
Yeah. And tell me the story about your co-founder being your first client. I need to hear that.
So we actually have it framed. It was a Facebook post that I had put out on Facebook, obviously. And it just said, if you copy and paste that work, I want to buy you a beer or something like that. And so I had multiple people respond, one of which was Will Bewley, who was an acquaintance of mine. I mean, we were friends, obviously, but we never, we're super close. So we were never thinking of working together. And so I'd go to his office, I see his process of what he's doing, copy and pasting. And I'm like, yeah, let's just both wire it up. So in an hour, I wired it up. And he's like, cool, I have 4 hours a day back from my job. I love this product. I want to get into startups. That's why I moved out to the US. That's what he said. And so we just teamed up, nights and weekends project. And 6 months later, we were profitable and took on some money and started Woflow.
That's awesome. And during that journey, can you tell me a little bit about, any pivotal moments that shaped that trajectory or your career as an entrepreneur?
So I'm not going to call this a pivotal moment. I'm going to call it a critical attribute, I guess. I realized how much time and effort was going to be needed to build a product that people wanted. And I say that because it's not going to be the first product you build. So I think endurance as a founder became very critical to us. So just realizing that, okay, I'm going to be up really late almost every night. I'm going to be up early every day. Like, I need to make this work. We gave ourselves a year. But I think understanding that, to me, and buying into it was super important, was a very important moment, because it basically told us, okay, put everything aside for a year. We're going all in. And if you don't stick with it, then it's not going to work, because we had to iterate until we found something that's.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that, as you might imagine. And, there are more bad days than good days, especially at the start. So that resilience and never letting go is a key part of it. Yeah, for sure. Go back to talking about what Woflow does a little bit. You're tackling specifically the issue of merchant data automation right now. So that powers food delivery, commerce, that kind of stuff. What's the biggest challenge today in that activity of structuring unstructured data at scale?
I mean, the word scale is the key to it. So structuring data is relatively easy. It was 10 years ago, and it's even easier today. But doing it at a massive scale is the hard part. There's so many edge cases. There's so many different complexities with doing it in the tens of thousands of items or tens of thousands of catalogs an hour, right? There's just a lot of complexity there. And so understanding the process, it's not just from a technological perspective, but it's really understanding the process of, okay, going from customer coming into us, whatever we have to do and how we get it back to that customer. How do you do that 10,000 times an hour? That took a very long time. We also have a human in the loop process. So we were kind of built out of the age of RPA, as I said before. And so there was a lot of things that were only heuristic and not, non-deterministic. And so you had to have many people in the loop to be able to facilitate different nodes in these workflows. Fast forward to today, we have a huge workforce of people, and it really allows us to actually use AI and LLMs a lot more than other people can, because we're able to verify. We already have that human in the loop system that does all these verifications. And so building out, again, the process, not just the technology, to be able to facilitate the scale is what has been the biggest challenge to date for us.
I imagine that even with the human in the loop aspect of it, the introduction of Gen AI and automation in general has improved the process over the years, right? I mean, having the human in the loop is probably a differentiator today because it allows us to do it better. But what has changed?
I mean, huge, yeah. I think the first time I put an LLM into our product, I knew everything was changing. I was like, okay, this is the first time I can actually remove a human from this node, or at least apply just QA human to this node and have the LLM do the first draft of it. It is still not perfect, but we are able to keep the quantity of people involved on a per flow basis way down, and also give them higher level responsibilities. And so the same people are able to do much higher level responsibility role, and more of them per minute. So they're able to just do a lot more things. We're able to have much higher quality. We're of the opinion that the cost will come down in LLMs. I think everyone is. And so right now, even if the cost actually isn't less because we are removing humans, we know that the margins will be higher in the long term.
What do you see happening in the next 5 years in that space? Do you see, I mean, it's super hard to guess because things are changing so fast. But do you have a point of view on what might happen to data infrastructure and automation over the next 5 years?
So yeah, I have an opinion. If you asked me this 5 years ago, I have no idea if I would have given you anything close to what it is today. So it is very hard to predict. But I think those are two different things. The automation side is, I think, harder to predict. I think the idea of the AGI and the idea of not having anyone required to be in a loop were very high impactful data requirements. So we're merchant data, just pricing. It could be like different sale promotions, things like that. These prices, these names have to be perfect, or else somebody's going to be able to purchase something on, platform website for free, and then the platform loses money, then we're responsible. So these things have to be perfect. So the human has to be in the loop. Until that AI is capable of making sure this is 100% perfect, then there will be somebody in the loop for high impact data transcription or data enrichment. In terms of the data infrastructure side, I think what I see now, which is super interesting, is the connectivity of the data is evolving drastically. So APIs are very much, exactly you have to give an API. You give it, it requires 3 arguments, maybe an ID, a name, whatever, and it gives you back data. In today's world, a lot of it is actually just human. It's just English, right? So like you can ask an agent that historically just had an API, you can ask it for this information. There's some logistics in the middle there in terms of like authentication, but being able to access data and being able to actually interpret data on other platforms is going to make the idea of a data infrastructure a lot more powerful. MCP is like the newest hot thing right now. I will be honest, I have played with it. I'm not super educated on it right now. It's like one of my things that I need to come up to in the next 1 week of my AI education. But I know that plays a huge role in how you're passing data back and forth, and how you're triggering different actions in different systems. And so I know that's going to translate exactly into the next evolution of data infrastructure, just globally.
MCP is super fun. For me, it's AI going full circle. We leverage the power of unstructured language, and then we're back again to structured interfaces, right? So
100%. Yeah.
That's great. Let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about leading engineering teams. Now, Woflow has grown significantly. You yourself have been very vocal about the importance of in-person connection, in-person interactions, even in a remote first environment, remote first world. Can you tell us a little bit about your approach to scaling a high performance team?
Sure. I think it's also important to know that we started Woflow not as a remote first or remote any company. So we started before COVID. I'm huge into culture. The culture on a team is one of the main reasons I got into startups, if not the main reason I got into startups. I just love the camaraderie, I love the culture. And so I didn't really expect to have any real sort of remote first culture there. Just because the water cooler talk is really what does create a lot of great products. So COVID, fast forward, we have a remote first culture. It was a requirement. We couldn't hire people in San Francisco. Even if we did, didn't matter. We couldn't go into the office. So we embraced it. And I will be honest, it took us like a good 2 years to make an effective remote first culture. We were just so we couldn't get past it. We were just hoping that everything would go back to normal and we'd be back in the office. But then we realized that was not going to happen. So we really embraced it. I think one of the big things that, I guess like every company in COVID, we did the Friday happy hours. We called it forced fun, and it really was forced fun. No one really wanted to do it after the third one, but we kept doing it to like keep our culture alive. I don't know if you guys did any of those, but I started to get annoyed of them, and I was like, if I'm getting annoyed of these, everyone's probably being annoyed of them. Let's cut them. We'll figure out something else to do fun remotely. Fast forward a little bit more. COVID is, we're back in the office. We have an office here in San Francisco. We opened up an office in New York. We decided to go remote first, but really stress the idea of we want you in person, New York and San Francisco for the majority of our company on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Basically, we just want a hybrid. We want a hybrid company, but we also want people who are not in an office to be able to join the rest of the team at least once a quarter. So my compromise was, let's get people together once a quarter and put on a shipathon. And so this has become the central, I guess, culture stock of Woflow for the engineering team is we do these quarterly shipathons. At first, it was very experimental, and I realized this last few years that it actually really does set us up for a very effective next quarter. It realigns everybody, makes everybody remember that everyone's a real person. It keeps the culture, brings back any culture we might have lost in the last 3 months of people not being together. And it's like a reset. Plus, it's super fun. We have really good food, and we have the best swag in the world for these events. So that's just become a big thing, and I think it's truly impacted how my team works. How most people on my team have been here for a really long time. I didn't realize how impactful these shipathons were until I started hearing people talk about it in the interviews as a selling point of the company.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. We have the equivalent of a shipathon here at Revello. We do it every quarter. On Thursday, which means 2 days from now, we're actually going to have a hackathon, and the whole engineering team is going to be in person, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Pretty much along the same lines. Is that the offsite that you guys hosted in New Orleans recently?
No, and then once a year we do a full company offsite. So the shipathon
okay.
is just the tech team. They have the other side of the house, ops. The ops side have actually just started doing their own event too, mainly because they're jealous of our swag that we create for our shipathon. So I think that's really what inspired them. But then we do an annual offsite with everybody. And last year was Mexico City. I was done here in San Francisco. This year was New Orleans. But those are also legendary. Again, big selling point, huge culture riser. I mean, people really love it. We focus on culture, but we also focus on kickstarting the next year. So high level, what are we trying to accomplish this year as a team, as a company? We break into groups, oftentimes groups that you wouldn't normally interact with, and do, fun little challenges, things that have nothing to do with the company, but just, team building. We try to make it fun. I say we're realistic in terms of we don't want to make offsites fun. We did the swamp tour and whatever else you do at New Orleans, and then in Mexico City we went to the pyramids, and we do kind of cool stuff too.
So, besides culture, what do you think separates a great engineering team from just an okay one?
So aside from culture, and I would say you said an engineering team, not an engineer. So I think the engineering team requires trust and empathy across the board. So everyone has to trust each other. But I think that actually does go into the bucket of culture as well. But the way that I describe who do I want on my team is, and this maybe also can shine a light on what our team is like and how I feel like a good, effective team works, is if something goes wrong and we're up in the middle of the night with 3 or 4 engineers, 2, 3 in the morning, and we're online for a couple hours to resolve an issue. At the end of that session, do we still like each other? Are we cracking jokes? Are we actually in a good mood? And it shocks me every time we are. Like I go to bed being like, that was horrible and it was awesome at the same time, because yeah, I didn't love being up for a few hours. And by the way, this doesn't happen very often, but this is a great example. You know, it always will happen on an engineering team. But we came together, we solved the problem. Everyone was super effective, communication at 100%. And we left still happy with each other, cracking jokes, and went to bed. So it's like, who do you want to be in the trenches with, right? And so that's the saying, and I stand by it. In terms of how teams work together, I think that trust piece is actually important in more ways than one. It goes with trust and respect. So you have to respect people both on their communication levels and on their skill. So I can't tell you that the only thing we look for is culture, but obviously, so skill level has to meet everyone's expectation. So the way that we hire is we say, are they worse? Are they going to make our company worse, the same, or better? And it has to be better. So everyone always has to be looking at at other players as on par or better than them. So everyone respects each other. Everyone knows that they're able to give tasks. They're able to give like tickets to other engineers if they can't finish them, and trust that they'll be able to get them done. And so there is a level there that I think we've created across the board at Woflow to ensure that.
Got it. Any leadership frameworks or leadership techniques, management techniques that you swear by?
So I came in, I think I told you this last time, I came into Woflow as the CEO. For three years, me and my co-founder, and it was purely because I built the first prototype. It was like my baby, but in reality, I was the CTO and Will was acting as the CEO, but he didn't have the title. I think one thing that I learned, well, I wouldn't even say I learned, I just have no ego. I think showing everybody on your team and your entire company that you're egoless makes everybody feel more comfortable with whatever they're doing. And so I think they get a little bit more sense of, I guess, I wouldn't say freedom, but autonomy, to like not have an ego, do what they think is right, and hopefully we all agree with them. And so for me, it was actually a very easy decision, even though it took 3 years. I think once we realized that it was the right move, I was like, absolutely, this makes total sense. I have zero to go about it. I am the CTO. Like, why do I have a CEO role? It doesn't make any sense. But I think that actually made me as a leader more powerful to my team. Like, I think they respected me more. They understood that I am truly here to make them better, to make the business better. I don't care about where I fit into it. I'm just here to fit in and make that happen.
Servant leadership. I really like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about engineering talent now. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned as a startup founder when it comes to hiring people?
I'd say trust your gut. I've had a few instances where I didn't quite trust my gut, but I went with what was good for the short term, I guess you'd say.
Mr. Right versus Mr. Right now. Yeah.
Yes, I like that. Exactly. And so I've just seen it not just with myself, but on other teams, like definitely not just at Woflow, but on other teams, even with other founders that I know. It's just kind of a unanimous sentiment across the board is you got to trust your gut. I think in terms of the quality of people that I want people that are passionate about what they're doing. That's really hard to suss out, to be honest. I like to, in the interview pipeline for Woflow, I run culture now, as you imagine from everything I've been saying here. So the last thing that happens is you talk to me for about an hour and we discuss, a lot of different things. But what I'm really looking for is like, are you truly passionate about this? You're going into a startup, even though we're not brand new, we're still a startup. And so the people in this company are passionate about what they're doing. They're passionate about executing on like what is set out for them to do. And they are high contributors to the company. If you're just trying to come in because, you're, stopping around an offer and you're like, oh, who's going to have the best benefits in this health, blah, blah, blah. Like, we don't want that. We want people that mutually beneficial. So like they want to work here, we want them to work here. And so really sussing that out from the beginning has been a work in progress, but I think we're doing really well now.
And you've been hiring engineer for over a decade now. Have you noticed any trends or any changes along those vintages, so to speak? Has talent become different?
Yes and no. I think what's a fact is there's more talent, but it's not better talent. I think the introduction of like boot camps to begin with. I went to a boot camp, so I'm actually not a CS major. I learned on my own, and then I was like, I should do a boot camp. Somebody told me to do it, and I was like, that's a great idea. I came out of that with imposter syndrome, like most people, but it took me about a year to realize that engineering now is a lot. Now meaning 10 plus 15 years ago when I went to this boot camp. 10 years before that, it was way harder. So every 10 years, I think engineering changes. And I think now with the introduction of LLMs, I mean, it's crazy. I'm like, I don't even know if I can just code on like a regular VS Code terminal with no Copilot or anything. I don't even know where to start anymore. I need it to like pick it off for me. And so I think the type of engineers that we're getting today are more focused around how to work with LLMs as coding agents, as opposed to somebody like myself coming in as an engineer who had zero Copilot abilities until a couple of years ago to learn how to introduce LLMs into my coding workflow. So like the workflows have vastly changed from the foundational level, right? It's like I'm trying to introduce work LLMs into mine. They start out at their baseline is using something like a cursor or something, and so there is a big different mindset, and I see that on my team. I see a lot of the young people that have come out much more recently out of universities. They start off coding with a comment to tell the LLM what to do, as opposed to me, where I like start out with the actual code and then I'll like ask it questions. And so I've been trying to get a little closer and see if that's actually a better strategy. And I think it is. But it's like they're used to it. That's what they're brought up with now.
That is super interesting. That the workflows are changing at such a
Yeah.
low level. I mean, such a basic level, right? Yeah. And what do you think becomes more important in that world in terms of skills, right? Because if sheer coding skills are becoming less critical, what emerges as a priority? Is it problem solving? Is it understanding the business? What's your opinion on that?
I still think it's persistence. I think like the same attribute goes for today as it did 10 years ago, as it probably did 10 years before that. With LLMs, it's hopefully a lot easier to get to the problem, to complete the problem, whatever that problem may be. But I've also noticed that sometimes I'm just mindlessly copy and pasting or just accepting whatever the LLM is giving me, in which case sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. And if I go down a rabbit hole, I need to have persistence to come out of that rabbit hole, just like I would pre-LLMs, right? Like the whole purpose is you need to make this thing work, you need to make this thing scale. Maybe you have to write some tests for it before you can ship it. And so getting it over the finish line and having that persistence, I think, is very key. One saying I have on the team, and I think I've drilled this into everyone's head, and I think they hate this saying so much, or they love it, is it's a 90-90. So you're 90% done, you have 90% to go. It's a philosophy that I swear is comes true at every project, every feature, everything. So you think you're done, but really the last 10% is actually just the second 90%. It's just ironing everything out and getting people to understand that if they get to 90% at the 50% mark of their like timeline, then they're on track, right? So they should not wait till the last day to try to wrap up the last 10% because it's never the last 10%. And we see that time and time again. And I mean, it's obviously not just me, it's just the company, it's everywhere. And so people just think about it and realize that they need to be persistent. The most persistent should be getting to that 90% in the shortest amount, because that second 90 is never fun.
As you know, a big part of our audience is engineering leaders like yourself. And one of the reasons they enjoy listening to the show is to hear their peers dishing out unwanted advice that actually might be helpful. What's something you wish you knew earlier in your journey as an engineering leader?
What's something I wish I knew earlier? The first thing that pops in my mind, actually many things, but the first thing I would say is being able to figure out how to effectively distribute work. Delegation. I would say all engineering leaders start off as ICs, or they should. And going from having full control over your own processes, your own code, your own logic, your own architecture, to widening it to even 2 people, it's actually pretty hard to do. And then you go 2 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. You have to realize that you're not an IC anymore. And so you as a leader, you have to step back a lot sooner than you think you do. I am still so guilty of taking on IC work, even now, but I will say I do it strategically because I feel to be respected as a leader, I need to still know what I'm talking about. And so I try to take some sort of ticket or project every few weeks. I need to know how Cursor works because it changes every 2 weeks. So I should maintain my focus on like understanding, okay, how do the weeds work while still being the one to be like, the full umbrella view and understanding and orchestrating the rest of the team. So understanding how to delegate effectively was a very big challenge. And I think part of that is just relinquishing your responsibility, and which is very hard. It's giving up your baby, right? You start off with the code base, you're letting other people contribute to it. You're not going to be able to read every PR. You're actually eventually going to read 0 PRs. But you still have the time. So you still have to understand how to make sure this thing still works like a well-oiled machine without you being interjected in every piece of it.
What advice would you give to young engineers who are thinking about a career in software? Things are changing so fast that it's really hard to be prescriptive, but what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, that's hard to predict, just because the speed of improvement of LLMs every week, every 2 weeks, like everything changes and new tools come out that help you solve different problems. New databases come out that help solve other problems. Honestly, my best piece of advice would be just constantly stay up on what's coming out and really dive deep into all of them. One thing that I do still, and I'm nowhere near a new engineer, is I read Product Hunt and Hacker News and TechCrunch every morning religiously for at least 30 minutes. I'm on there. Me and my coffee and those 3 pieces of read, it's great. I understand basically everything that's come out that day. I'll get a nice overview of it, and then I'll save it and I'll dive into it later in the day. And it's really helped me stay up to date on everything. There's never been a time when like more crazy stuff comes out on a daily basis. And I think trying to get into the space and starting to interview with new companies, I think having a leg up would be to really understand the latest and greatest and understand how and when to apply that to certain problems.
That's great advice. Jordan, I wanted to move us to the last question of the show. And it's a tricky one. So is there an opinion that you hold about engineering leadership that might be contrary to conventional wisdom, something that goes against the grain of the best practices that are widely accepted?
I have two. First,
Okay. Wow.
not all engineers are gamers. And second, dubstep is the best genre of music for coding. And that's all I got for you.
Oh, wow. Well, the other way to think about this is there's something you strongly believe, but others in the industry might push back on. Well, a lot of people will push back on that last one. Thanks so much for your time today, Jordan. And for those who want to be connected to you or follow your work, where's the best place to find you? LinkedIn, Twitter?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm trying to come back to Twitter, but slow and steady. I have like 6 followers.
All right. Jordan, thanks so much again. Don't forget, everyone, to like and subscribe to Tech Teams Today on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.
Bye.